have to do carbon trading in order to strike a balance. Today we are honored to have Mr. Felix Chung to be our speaker. You all know that he has been a LegCo member for many years. Now he is working on carbon trading. So over to you, please, Felix. Let's play a game first. Okay? Before Felix presents, here's a game for you. Now you can cast your vote. Please take out your mobile phone and scan the QR code. Do Hong Kong people and companies have enough awareness to ESG and ESG-related policies? Are you familiar with the environment, sustainability, and governance? Of course. The first choice is not strong, ordinary, or you don't care, or yes, it's strong, or very strong. So we will give you 10 seconds to vote. You can mobile phone. I think there will be some reference value from this opinion poll for Felix. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Oh, not strong. The majority voted for not strong. Question 2. Again, please use your cell phone to scan the QR code. Second question. What is the strongest obstacle in adopting ESG in your company? I understand that there may be many obstacles. Option 1, too complicated, don't know what to do. Number 2, regulation. There are many rules that are not clear. Number 3, corporate culture. There isn't that atmosphere in the company. Number 4, there is not really an expert in the company, so you don't know how to do it. Number 5, no showcase in society. You can't see much return, and so there is no mutual stimulation and learning. And then management's priority not urgent. Okay, what is the result? Management's priority not urgent. That is the first choice. So it seems that you have employed ESG director, but he or she has not been able to achieve much. Okay, third question. Carbon trading. Is carbon trading an innovative, meaningful way to help ESG and industries? Carbon trading is not really very familiar to everyone. So is this very meaningful or not meaningful, or you don't know how it works? It seems that most of you find it meaningful. This is encouraging. No matter how much you know, you still find it meaningful at least. Okay, so these are the 3 questions to stimulate your thoughts. Now, let's pass the floor to Felix. Thank you. Thank you, Tonio and Jeff, for the introduction. Thank you, CDI and Ecolab, for the arrangement so that I can do this sharing with you. What inspired me to work on carbon trade? Actually, in Mrs. Carrie Lam's final policy address, she said that in Hong Kong in the future, an international carbon trading platform would be established. After she left the government, John Lee, in November last year, established a carbon trading platform under the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. It is known as Core Climate, so it is already up and running. The second thing that inspired me is if you drive Tesla, well, in 2021, that is the year before last year, they sold carbon credits worth 1.5 billion USD. This is a big income. If you read Tesla's annual report, 1.5 billion USD accounts for more than 10%, almost 20% of their total income. Last year, they sold 1.8 billion. This year, the amount may exceed 2 billion USD. So Elon Musk is one of the smartest persons in the world, and he is already making money from this. Now, when they manufacture Tesla EV, carbon credits are produced, and that means there is no cost to the company, and they can monetize from the carbon credits. Number 3, I personally am from the textile and garment sector. Textile and garment is the second largest polluter in the world. The first most polluting industry is oil and gas, and the second largest polluter is textile and garment. So in the production process, if our sector can help to decarbonize, then for human beings and for the climate, a big help will be done already. Now, for the manufacturing sector and also export, now the business environment is very difficult. If we can teach them how to put in place some environment-friendly production lines and facilities to reduce carbon emission, then of course they can save cost. By being more environment-friendly, we can save costs. Everybody knows that. Now, while we can reduce costs, at the same time, there are carbon credits generated, and so we can have additional income. Number 3, you can say that this is very good to a company's image in terms of ESG. Number 4, there are now many overseas buyers. Then they have this requirement. If you don't do it, they will not place orders with you. So if you do this, you are able to do more business. You can get more orders. Number 5, you can help the world. You can decarbonize and help the world. So overall speaking, this is very positive. This is a very positive act. But how to do it? In Hong Kong, as you can see just now, well, just now the opinion poll shows Hong Kong people's mentality. And in Hong Kong, when it comes to carbon credit and carbon trading, the SARG is promoting ESG, mainly in the finance sector. However, the problem is we now rely on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and Hong Kong MA to compile some guidelines. So mainly about listed companies, they have to present ESG in their annual report. Okay, a few years ago, companies only treated this as handing in assignment. Okay, they will write up something in their annual report and that's it. And now requirements are being more stringent. So audit will be required. After doing ESG work, it has to be audited. So I work with many consulting companies, including PwC. We work on ESG. When clients have completed their ESG report, what's next? There are some companies or other companies know how much my carbon footprint is. What does that mean? What's next? The next step should be carbon trading. That is, if you know what your carbon footprint is, no matter whether it is high or low, you have extra carbon credits, then you can sell them for money. If you don't have enough, then you can buy carbon credits to offset. So in this way, you are able to complete the outcome stated in the ESG report. If you only know your carbon footprint, what's next? So now for ESG, it has reached a stage that we need to do carbon trading in order to achieve breakthrough. Now, let's say I will say to him, see, my performance is very good, my carbon footprint is very good, what's next? So carbon trading in the coming 30 years will see big development. There will be very, very huge potential for development. In Hong Kong, now many people don't know, the SARG has already formulated the carbon neutrality blueprint for 2050. So the blueprint has been made already. In the future, according to this blueprint, the government will follow the blueprint, but they will not do extra, because well, they will be able to reach the target anyway. For China, by 2030, they want to reach carbon peak. Right now, the carbon emission is still rising. By 2030, they should see the peak. After that, it will come down till 2060 when they reach carbon neutrality. In Hong Kong, we reached carbon peak in 2014, and now it is coming down already. For the SARG, they mainly target at 3 sectors. They don't need to do too much. The first one is the 2 power companies, because their carbon emission in Hong Kong accounts for 63%, because they burn coal and they burn carbon. And recently, last week, the 2 power companies said they will reduce electricity tariff. Well, because of Russia-Ukraine war, the natural gas and oil price have risen, so they increased price some time ago. Now, oil and gas price had come down, so they can reduce tariff. The 2 power companies are now using natural gas to replace coal and carbon as their raw materials. So the 2 power companies have accounted for 63% of total carbon emission. The second important sector is the transportation sector. Kowloon motor bus, taxis, MTR, and other public modes of transport. Well, all these account for 20% altogether. 20% in total. So these 2 sectors together account for 80+% of total carbon emission in Hong Kong. And then waste management, kitchen waste, 8%. So altogether, 90% already. So besides, there is no manufacturing industry, no factory in Hong Kong. So carbon emission is mainly from those 3 sectors. Asked, will the SARG enact legislation, for instance, about tax, carbon tax or carbon fee in Taiwan? But then the SARG is not going to do it based on my understanding, because they will be able to meet that goal. If there is carbon fee or carbon tax, well, according to the basic law, it states that we should have simple tax and so on. So if we create carbon tax, then we don't know what problem will occur. So in terms of carbon trade, the SARG doesn't have too much incentive. However, why did they create Core Climate? That is the carbon trading platform. Well, that actually helps China's carbon trade development. Is China, number 2 US, number 3 India, number 4 Russia, number 5 Japan. China accounts for 30%, but then President Xi already said that by 2060 we must reach carbon neutrality. So in the past, China has been doing a lot on I'm sure they can attain the target, but if there are extra carbon credits, then what? Right now in China, there are already almost 10 carbon trading platforms or markets: Shanghai, Beijing, Tianjin, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Chongqing, and they are already trading very freely within China, but these credits cannot go out to the international market. So Hong Kong has been working on international trade. Go to the international market in the future. But at this moment in time, this function is still not delivered. But I won't go through the details now. So overall speaking, this is what the market is like. Another very attractive point is carbon is 60 to 70 100 EU. 日本係賣緊1萬 yen 一噸 ，OK？ 美國就賣緊30蚊美金30 USD per ton. 即係你見到個差價 So you can see the price difference is very big. 所以咧，如果我哋當 carbon credit 係 treat carbon credit as a product or commodity, then you will get very rich if you are able to sell them. Let's not talk about 100 euro. If you can sell it at 30 euro, it is already a fortune. We're talking about a few times of profit, not a certain percent. So that's where the attractiveness. We did a survey, right? Why is it that senior management in Hong Kong is not very motivated? First, because the companies are mainly SMEs. SMEs have very limited resources. SMEs have very limited knowledge of all these. So right now, only the big companies are doing this work. If you read Economic Daily or Economic Journal, they will tell you which companies are doing ESG, and they are all big listed companies. You seldom see SMEs participation. There are some, but not many. Traditionally speaking, if you invest in environment-friendly facilities, well, the cost is very high. But of course, when we run a factory, for instance, well, we may want to install solar panels. Solar panels are already very mature now. They are not expensive. And the payback period is 5 to 6 years. Then we're talking about 10 or 20% return. That is quite good. For those who run factories, we will think that, well, 5 to 6 years later, I don't know how the world is like. I don't know whether I am able to get orders. So they are reluctant to invest in all these. However, when you install solar power panels, then you can reduce cost. At the same time, if you can create carbon credits, then you will have extra income if you can sell them. And then the return will be 2 years. That is, the payback period will be 2 to 3 years. At least I will be able to envisage that, right? So now for carbon credits, many people think that carbon credits have value. If they can sell these carbon credits, then there will be more incentive for people to do the work. In business, we always talk about incentives. In April this year, we went to London for a conference, and the conference was about environmental protection. In Pakistan, there is a very senior councillor or Congress member. She's a lady. She said, in the third world, well, we are victims. Last year, in Pakistan, there was serious flood because of climate change. She said, in order to promote carbon reduction, there are two main organizations or two types of people who can do the work. First, United Nations. COP28 is now having a meeting in Dubai. The second is the business sector. If the business sector doesn't do anything, nothing will be achieved. If the business sector doesn't work, even if the United Nations is doing a lot, it will be fruitless. Now, for the business sector, what will be the incentive? Money, carbon credit. There is one slide which is quite important. I would like to show. So these are points that I have gone through just now. Now, this one is more important. Some green groups have done this forecast or a projection. In the future, no matter whether it's about carbon credits or carbon demand, the growth is like this. So in other words, we are now in 2023. In 2010 to 2020, the growth is only this. From 2020 to 23 to 2030, the growth is like 10 times, 12 times. Why? Why is it that it grows all of a sudden from here? This is a critical year in 2015. At that time, there was the Paris Agreement. More than 190 odd countries have signed it and agreed that we should do something together. Otherwise, the earth will collapse. In Hong Kong, we are lucky because we don't really feel the potential collapse until there was the 1 in 500 years black rainstorm. Well, in Bangladesh and India, you may have seen the serious floods on TV. But in fact, this can also happen in Hong Kong within a very short period of time. We did not experience that in the past. Last year, in the EU countries, they are very anxious about climate change. In summer, the temperature is 40 plus degrees everywhere, and in Europe, there is no air conditioning. For us in Hong Kong, we have air conditioning, even though it is 50 degrees outside is fine. Last year, in 2022, there were 60,000 people who died because of heat wave in Europe. So in Europe, they do feel the urge. So in the future, this curve will rise like this. And the main reason is now in different countries, because they have signed the Paris Agreement, so they went back to their own country to enact laws. They said that they have to monitor carbon emission among enterprises. And in EU this year, they had already put in place the carbon tax in 2025-26. That is a transitional period. And during that year, well, because it takes 2 to 3 years to do some preparation work, you can't levy tax right away. So companies are asked to do preparation. So sometime later, I'm going to levy a tax. That's the message sent to the companies. But not all companies have the ability to decarbonize. It is easier with the manufacturing industry. Or if you are competent, if you have money, for example, Morgan Stanley and other financial institutions, they have bought a big forest in Brazil. They are working on carbon capture in that forest. And CLP is working on wind farm. Well, these wealthy companies can do it, but not all companies have the capability. So let's say if you need to pay 1 million in carbon tax, if I buy something, if I buy carbon offset with $500,000, then I am better off. So in the future, the demand for carbon credit will be like this. Another example is Singapore. I think Singapore wins over us in this regard. This year, they have introduced carbon tax, 5 Singapore dollar per ton. Not really expensive, around 30 Hong Kong dollars. In 2024, it rose to $25. That is a price set by the government. In 2027, it will be 50 Singapore dollars. 2030, 80 Singapore dollars. The price is fixed already. So in other words, Singapore enterprises, if they don't do anything, if they don't reduce carbon, then they will have to pay carbon tax. The value of carbon credit in Singapore will follow carbon tax. Okay, today $5 only. So today carbon credit may be worth $2. But in the future, if carbon tax is $100, well, I guess carbon credit will be at least like a few, 10 Singapore dollars. So let's say for Singapore, in 2023 to 2030, in the coming 7 years, carbon credit value may be 10 times that of now, as shown in this chart. So that's the growth, potential growth. But for carbon credit, it is very difficult to create them. It's not easy to create carbon credit. Please don't think that I only need to find a gold mine and then I can dig it to find gold. Carbon credit is colorless. You can't feel it, you can't smell it, you can't touch it. It's carbon. But then, carbon is originally carbon is refuse, but it has a price. It's difficult to find it. Of course, there are experts today here. Some project developers are doing work in Amazon rainforest, or Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Indonesia, Myanmar, and so on. So there are already some forests where certification is done. However, in order to achieve this certification, it will take like 3 to 5 years. For forests, well, a forest is very big, so once it is certified, the amount, the quantity is huge. Recently, a company approached me. It is in Amazon, and there are 1.5 million tons of carbon credit being certified, and they asked me to sell them together. Okay, this area is certified. Later on, in other areas, there will also be certification, but they have been working in there for 5 years already. And another friend of mine approached me recently in Papua New Guinea. He said, at the end of this year, I will be able to get the carbon credits. He has been working on it for 3 years already. So in other words, by that time, if the demand continues to rise, another reason why demand rises or price rises is because it's difficult to certify the carbon credit very quickly. Because when you buy a piece of gold, I put it on your table, and then you give me like $1,000 per unit. And then oil is also in a similar position, but then for this kind of carbon credit, it is just a piece of paper. Well, he told me that he is going to get 1 million tons. So certification is the most important. Now in the world, there are only 2 to 3 creditable certifiers. One is Vera in the US, another is Gold Standard in Europe. Recently in Singapore, there is a company called ACI Asia Carbon Institute. It targets at the Asian market. And the WWF Worldwide Fund has a program mainly about the manufacturing industry. It is known as LCMP. No Carbon Manufacturing Program. It has been here for more than 10 years. So LCMP helps factories to certify how much carbon emission has been reduced. Then carbon credits can be created and they can be sold. Now, I am helping factories and the manufacturing sector to do this. Well, it takes at least 9 months, or in usual cases, 1 year. So the supply of carbon credit takes a long time. Now I always talk to my friends, if you want to do it, you should act fast. If you don't do it now, later on you may have to wait for 1 to 2 years for the credits to be created, for them to be monetized. If you do business with EU, 2 or 3 years later, when the carbon tax is finalized, then, well, the credits may not be able to get into Europe, or there may be import duty to cover the carbon credits. So recently H&M 2 or 3 years ago made a commitment. They said by 2030, the whole H&M supply chain, all suppliers, all factories will have to reduce carbon emission by 30%. Otherwise, sorry, no order will be placed with you. So as I said just now, This can help you take orders. In the past, in the manufacturing sector, no matter whether you work in GBA or Southeast Asia, we competed on price. In Dongguan, of course, we could not compete with Bangladesh because it's really a price war. However, now people compete on environmental protection. If a factory in Bangladesh doesn't know all about these, if my factory in Dongguan can do all these, then even if my price is higher, I can still get the order. So this is changing the ecosystem about grabbing orders. These are new changes. Besides, in the Hong Kong SAR, well, we are able to play this role. However, as explained just now, the blueprint is already set, and the government does not have any new incentive to change further. So that's why, even though Hong Kong can help China on one hand and help the world on the other hand, this role is not well played. Okay. Let me pause here and see if you have questions. I can actually easily talk about this for 1.5 hours. There are a lot of points to cover, but these are just something basic. These are the advantages or merits. It can help increase your revenue. You can become more environmentally friendly. You can have better reputation and credibility. Your productivity can improve. So we call this carbon management. It is a new topic. Many enterprises would like to hire people, but not many people have this knowledge. It is true. In Hong Kong, we have a number of universities. Now I teach in City U as well as Chinese U, and they do not have these programs. They are about to introduce these master's degree programs so that the senior executives can take these programs, and then when they go back to their companies, they can implement things accordingly. Very often when I contact the big bosses, well, they realize that they can make money from carbon credits, but then the employers are not the ones to do the work. They will ask their staff to do it. So very often, they will not hire a designated person to take care of ESG and sustainability, especially for SMEs. They will ask their accounting department to take up the work, or they will ask the factory manager to take the work, and those people are already too busy. For example, they are trying to catch deadlines and so on. So then they will just ignore the whole thing. In that case, they will just brush aside the whole work. Okay? The big bosses should be taking over the work themselves. Otherwise, they will seek help when the deadline comes. Regarding the carbon market, basically, there are two main markets. One is a regulated market. The governments make laws and then they ask companies, enterprises to do it. China is a regulated market. There are 10 major industries or sectors being covered: aviation, cement, electricity, medicine, and so on. Mines, and so on. So in China, the price is fixed because there are a lot of things in China that are being fixed by the state. And they are able to make a lot of money because they are also regulated market for EV and also petrol vehicles. In the production process of vehicles, they do a comparison of the carbon emission. If you manufacture EV, of course, carbon emission will be lower. So that's how they have so many carbon credits to sell to their peers. And then 70%, 80% of the market is voluntary market. Let's say in Hong Kong, I think that I am a responsible company. I know how much my carbon footprint is, so then I will buy something and then do some offset so that my ESG report looks nice. But in Hong Kong, the transaction volume is very small. On core climate platform, the transaction volume is very small because they still have not reached their goal yet. However, for voluntary market in the future, it is going to be the largest market because in some places, there is no legislation. They have not made laws asking people to reduce carbon emission. But then in Singapore, for instance, they have carbon tax. And even though there is no law, or in some cases, the industries cannot really reduce emission in finance, insurance, and so on, how can they reduce carbon? There is no way for them to do it, so they have to buy carbon credit. Those people are the wealthiest. They can afford it. So in terms of the future prospect, I think this is just a start. I think in the coming 30 years, we will see big development. Okay? Basically, this shows the carbon management. You have to find consultant to take a look at the company, and then emission management, net zero solution. And then after carbon credits are created, you can do carbon trading. Many of you here are from the finance sector, so you may be working on green finance. Just now, a friend asked me, in Hong Kong, there is a few 10 billions worth of green finance. What is it all about? No one knows, because the money is being lent out. And so they are working on green projects with the money. As long as you have green ideas and include them in your projects, then you can borrow money. Now, big companies are doing a lot of ESG work because they want to be able to get financing more easily. They want investors to invest in them. Investors will say, oh, everybody in the world is talking about green development. If you are not green, how can I invest in you? And when you want to take out loans from banks, you can get lower interest rate by 1 or 1.5%. Today, usually, interest rate is HIBOR plus something, at least 6 to 7%. For big enterprises, the loan amount is in billions. If you can enjoy 1% less in interest rate, that is already a big amount. So everybody wants to get less costly funding, so the operation will be easier. Now, the companies with big loan amounts will face hard time in the past. 1% interest rate, now 7%, 7 times higher than in the past. So that means your net profit will be eroded because of the high interest rate. So regarding green finance, that's what Hong Kong is doing. But this is not the right approach for green finance. Let's say if there are some factories, they are not able to invest in environmentally friendly facilities, then green finance can be a fund to invest in factories and help those factories to upgrade and transform their technology and their production lines so that costs can be reduced. At the same time, there will be carbon credits. And then at the end of the day, those carbon credits are the return to the investors, and costs can also be lowered. The return can be very high, more than 20%. So green finance, the real purpose of green finance is this. Instead of just giving loans to companies in order to lower interest rate by like 1 to 2%, Jeff asked me to present for 45 minutes. Well, please continue. Your presentation is excellent. Okay. We like to invite a few participants to have a dialogue with Felix, and then we can open the floor. Now, let me start with one question. Many people asked whether Hong Kong can become a carbon trading platform. So I have discussed with Felix, and he said, yes, there is the chance, but not that easy. Okay, my question is, how can the government, the business, and the academia and the community work together so that in Hong Kong there can be a carbon emission center in Asia? Well, this is not difficult. In Hong Kong, in the past 100 years, we have accumulated much trading experience. Just treat carbon credit as a product for buying and selling. Hong Kong has a very mature financial center and a trading platform. So that's why Mrs. Carrie Lam included this point in her policy address. So the concept is right. There are now only problems with operation. At the beginning, I explained to you already that at the beginning, this platform is to serve the mainland, so that carbon credits would be placed here in Hong Kong to be sold internationally. Now, internationally, there are not enough carbon credits since China has extra, so these can be sold to overseas. Now, for carbon, it is tasteless, it has no smell and so on. But then the international market doesn't recognize or doesn't acknowledge China's standing. So how can you sell the credits? Well, people may say that those certificates are available on Taobao. So in China, it is not true that Chinese enterprises have no carbon credit, but we're talking about international standard, gold standard, LCMB, and so on. If there is the certification, then the credits can be exported. Now, in core climate, there are a lot of credits from China, from India. Those are internationally certified. But in China, there are so many enterprises. Not everyone uses international certification. They will mainly follow national standard. For national standard, yes, national standards are very high and stringent. However, other countries don't recognize them. So, on the platform, China's carbon credits cannot be made available. At the same time, we're talking about internal circulation. Now, if I have some carbon credits from China, it would be stupid for those credits to be sold back to the mainland. In China, there are 10 different carbon trading platforms. Why do they have to go through Hong Kong? They have their own internal trading already, so they don't need to place those credits in Hong Kong platform. If no one buys those credits in Hong Kong from outside, then this is useless. Well, you used to be a LegCo member, so is there any suggestion for this? I think the problem rests with certification. If the SARG is brave enough to set up or to work with international accreditation center to create a Hong Kong standard. Now, if we work with other countries and if these standards are accepted globally, then it works. The second issue is we always talk about the Greater Bay Area. This is also a good opportunity. Since the 80s in the Guangdong province and Pearl River Delta, a few 10,000 or even 100,000 odd factories were opened, and now some have moved to Southeast Asia or the Belt and Road. They are all factories owned by Hong Kong people or controlled by Hong Kong people. If we teach the factories about all this, and the credits are all certified, then, well, that would work. In GBA, there will be so many credits available. In Southeast Asia and the Belt and Road, many factories belong to Hong Kong people. Recently, there is a Hong Kong company which owns a big textile factory in Bangladesh. We used 10 months to certify 100,000 tons of carbon credit. The boss was so happy, and then WWF invited him for an interview, and the interview was published in their annual report as a successful story. You can calculate how much 100,000 tons is worth. Well, 6 million RMB, or at EU's price, then 80 million. So they only spend 100,000 as cost. So the boss is so happy. He always asks me when I will sell the credits for them. Right. Now let's invite another friend to address us. He is a planner. He is also working on IT. Stanley Ng, please. Thank you. Thank you, moderator. Thank you, Mr. Chung, for giving us this very valuable talk. Now, I used to be a planner. My company is named Map King. I work on IT. Just now, we talked about how to accumulate carbon credits. Okay, let me share with you a real story. Now, Gold map. Well, in Hong Kong, we usually use Google Map, but then in China, they mainly use Gaode map. And in Beijing, in early 2023, they announced the figures of last year. They have 900,000 tons of carbon credits, which have been accumulated. If you work on finance, you will be familiar with that. For Gaode map, it is one company within the Alibaba Group. Alibaba has already acquired that company. So they promote green mobility. If you walk, that is good for your heart. If you cycle, it is even better. If you take public transport like bus or MTR, well, it is not as good for your health, but at least you can reduce carbon footprint. Well, carbon footprint is the biggest for air trips, and then followed by private vehicle trip. And then up till this year in Beijing, there are already 3 million people using it or participating in that scheme. Every day, if I walk to work, then I will get a carbon score as compared to driving to work. And then that score will be stored in the Gaode map. Then, as you know, Alibaba does a lot of things that are not really allowed today. They work on mini or microfinance of people. And that is already a big amount given the large population of China. So all the participants within that system are given coupons. And then in that system, for the original scheme, so you can redeem those coupons for some gifts or free, some points and so on. So they have created an ecosystem with this. And so many people are attracted to join the green mobility scheme. Well, if you have the Gaode Map app or Alipay map, you can play games about planting trees, and there is an economy behind it. At the beginning of this year, 9 billion tons already, and now I think it's more than 10 billion already. So it's a large amount of money. And for the ordinary general public, if they take part, they also benefit. In fact, this is closely related to us. Just now, I asked Felix a question. Now, if you look at the government, it is not true to say that the SARG has not done anything. They issue green bonds, but I don't know much about it. Later on, we have a participant who may be talking about green bond. For green bond, apart from lending money, well, together with Guangzhou Stock Exchange, they work together to do promotion. So I asked him, I think we should promote this by means of green bonds. How can we do it? The government has only given some rough idea, but not much clarity. And the government is going to do something with the credit system as well. Just now I mentioned the case about Gauda map because there is the Alibaba ecosystem, and there are also benefits to members of the public, so they have already succeeded, so to speak. But in Hong Kong, do we have the room to do it? I think I want to ask Mr. Chung for his advice. What more can we do in terms of green bonds? Before you respond, let me tell you about a very urgent issue as a planner. If you search flood in Central online, well, there is an overseas green group saying that if the ice in the North Pole melts, then where will the water reach? They said that water will even reach the pond, so there will be flooding in Central. I don't know whether this is going to be true.
因為我咧今年年頭我有個老友啊，就住邊度咧？就係住喺錦繡花園最北嗰個地方，即係最近。因為錦繡花園填咗出嚟咧，係啦，就低洼地，但係佢接住出嚟咧就係深圳。咁我知道死黨嚟，我就話喂老友真嘅呢件事你諗下呢個問題。
Please think about this because this may become true. Engineering, there may be some solutions. So let's say we can build some dam or we can build water, but we need some money. We need budget. Does the government have enough money? That's another question. Back to the point.
水浸眼眉究竟眼眉嘅數字係點咧？原來喺過去呢幾十年咧，每10年嗰個維多利亞港咧就升高32個 mm， 即係升高1寸多一啲。咁所以咧概念上10年升高1寸多一啲咧，即係100年嘅100年在比較少人會繼續到啦嚇。100年後就高一尺，咁100年後高一尺咁就我個住喺呢個錦繡嗰個 friend 咧，嗱當然正常係冇事嘅，咁但係咧當個潮汐漲退嘅問題、打風嘅問題咧，咁低洼地帶唔止香港。所以就唔好話呢個唔影響香港，係即係嗰個環保署呢個誇張咗，但係咧好多香港嘅低洼地帶喺海水倒灌、颱風或等等嘅情況之下，的確未來幾十年係會受到影響嘅。咁但係嗰個就即係下大家都咁好啦，呢個問題請綠色金融咧就綠色債券都要請下你睇個有冇好方法可以做好啲。
Felix。喂，我唔係金融專家，不過你啱提咧阿里巴巴呢個 case 咧，我9月我就去咗杜拜，去杜拜做咩咧？我就去見阿里巴巴 Cloud 杜拜 Cloud。
See Alibaba Dubai Cloud。
即係阿里巴巴 Cloud 喺杜拜開咗間公司，
佢準備咧
就同沙地阿拉伯唔係沙地阿拉伯 UAE 阿聯酋。其中一個subsidiary 合作
one subsidiary of UAE, they want to work together to start carbon footprint and carbon trade for the whole UAE. And one point is mentioned by Stanley, that is, they want all UAE residents to download an app to calculate everyone's daily footprint. So at that time, they will not give out coupons but carbon coins as crypto so that they can buy things with those coins. Now, this technology of Alibaba has already reached the Middle East. And then, well, I said Alibaba is like an aircraft carrier. So, well, if I knock on people's doors, those are only carbon credit suppliers. So now conversation has been going on in Hong Kong. Are we able to do this? Of course. But can we really facilitate it? I guess there will be difficulty because every day we will be opening up our lifestyle and our daily living, and then other people will know, and then it will become big data. Well, of course, there are pros and cons. The good point is, as you said, we encourage each and every individual to contribute effort to climate change. But is everybody willing to tell you whether I am riding the MTR or whether I am driving or walking? It's difficult to promote this in Hong Kong. Okay, let's invite another participant or commentator, Mr. Lau Yun Hong from the finance sector as well. Yes, this is really an expert. Ladies and gentlemen, in recent years, in the international arena, the term that appears most frequently is, after Second World War, we know that there is international law and UN constitution. And then in Hong Kong, we now have an opportunity because of carbon emission and carbon trading. And because of international rules, still not an international order has been formed. So that's why there is a room for us to do some work. In 1975, I joined the finance sector. At the beginning, I started with Japanese futures and then later on leveraged trading and then listed company. During the process, I think foreign exchange and oil and gold and also chips enjoy the biggest transaction volume in the world. In the future, I believe that carbon emission and carbon trading, carbon credits, these will be enjoying the biggest turnover. There are a few dimensions to look at this. Recently, President Biden and also the Secretary of State emphasized that there are three dimensions in U.S.-China relationship: cooperation, competition, and confrontation. So China wants to expand cooperation, control competition, and avoid confrontation. For cooperation, the most important point is about global warming. Biden, in his election manifesto, accords the most priority to this. And for China and the U.S., U.S. is the #1 economy in the world. China is the second largest economy. But China is the biggest carbon-emitting country in the world, and U.S. is #2 in terms of carbon emission. So on this point, we can find an intersection and expand cooperation between U.S. and China so as to benefit the whole world in terms of peace and development. Why do I think that Hong Kong has opportunity? Because in the world there are 235 countries or regions. There are only 5 socialist countries. The remaining 230 countries are capitalist countries. And Hong Kong is just in between socialism and capitalism. Hong Kong is in the middle of Eastern and Western culture. So that's why we can absorb the strengths of different systems and avoid the weaknesses. We can integrate different cultures so that we can develop our own economic model here in Hong Kong. So when it comes to carbon trading and carbon emission, if the center is developed here in Hong Kong, people will find it fair because we have inherited from Britain's development over the past centuries. So we have common law, and in Hong Kong we have one country, two systems. President Xi Jinping said that it is a good system, so there is no point to change it. Because of that, I suggest that in Hong Kong should take the lead to formulate a rule-based international order, and that is carbon trading international order. Now, Mr. Chung, I think it is best for you to take the lead to create a carbon emission think tank, and then you can get government's resources and also society's resources. You can recruit talents and then study the Paris Agreement and the Tokyo Climate Protocol. And then This is the top-level design, and then you can formulate carbon trading international standards. For China, well, we will certify the amount of carbon emission, and then the US, Brazil emits oxygen much more than they emit carbon dioxide. So they actually have a surplus. For Papua New Guinea, they are very backward, but then they have many forests. And so they are just the reverse of carbon emission. They are really carbon positive. So many backward countries and developing countries can eradicate poverty by doing this. So if we can put in place a carbon trading standard, and then the carbon trading center is placed in Hong Kong, then in carbon trading, for example, in London, there is the price for Brent oil or the London gold fixing. Well, they are very authoritative. Well, I think Hong Kong, if we can do this, can really serve as an international financial center. We can find our way out. 100 years ago, Great Britain was the strongest country in the world, and London was the biggest financial center at that time. And then in the past 100 years, the US is the strongest nation. It is related with New York being the biggest financial center. Now China is going to be a very strong socialist nation, and so Hong Kong has to be strengthened as an IFC. One very important ingredient is for Hong Kong to be an international carbon trading center. So please try to contribute to this development. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, I'm sure what you said is all correct. He has made some very high-level points. I'm sure you should write up a proposal for presidency. Yes, I'm sure he will be interested. Now, I think you should take the lead to organize an international forum. The presidency will send you a congratulatory note. Well, some time ago, there was an international finance summit. You should ask the government to organize an ESG international carbon trading forum. I guess someone else should do it. I think you should do it. You should create a forum. Please, in terms of profits and future development potential. Yes, thank you. I know that many participants would like to speak. I have a question for Mr. Chung.
傳統咧，而家咧一直以往咧做呢啲叫 project developer 咧，實際上好多都係金融機構投資，因為你做一個咁嘅認證啊，你例如佢最近個朋友即係揾我嗰個係巴布亞新幾內亞。佢係3個香港咁大，嗰個森林3個香港咁大，佢要求用嘅錢係好多，所以佢都係 back 拜啲金融機構去俾錢佢做，因為做幾年先做到出嚟。咁所以最終喺呢方面咧，又係走唔甩錢，即係金融呢樣。咁所以好多時。嗰啲金融機構投資咗呢度，佢 create 咗，佢咪賣翻出去，咪賺翻錢，都係咁樣做。但係另外咧，我做緊一樣嘢咧，就係係傳統以外，即係另外第二種就係再生能源，即係太陽能啊、風力發電啊嗰類型嘅，嗰啲又係一啲大企業、大嘅電能公司先有能力有嗰啲技術做。咁因為來不即係走唔甩咧，都係啲大企業牽頭行先。但係我而家做緊一樣嘢咧，就係製造業。工廠冇分大細，有大有細，但係大部分都係中小企。咁製造業咧， 即係話我即係嗰隻嚟嗰陣時同啲朋友講。如果你用1000年嘅時間嚟睇呢個地球，頭100年呢個碳排放
For 1,000 years. The first 800 years, carbon emission was very low. Until 1820s, after the Industrial Revolution in the UK,
根本
what
製
shot
造
up
業工廠個排放係令到
manufacturing sector and
個世界
factories
咁犀利。
made
所以
emissions.
冇乜
So
人
that's why
咧去照顧
we are
工
faced with
廠，
this
所以我
situation.
而家咧就係
Not
教啲
many
工廠
people
點
are
樣
taking
減排。
care of the factories. So
嗰度咧
now
先
I
係個源
teach
頭，
factories to reduce
嗰個源
emission.
頭會減。
That
你
is the
係起嗰
source
棵
of
樹係
emission.
咁索係咁吸
Even
係
if
咁
there
索
are
咧，
many trees that
你
absorb
係
carbon,
即係佢哋都辛苦嘅，啲樹都
but
辛苦。
trees have not
係咪
timed？ themselves.
咁所以咧，你喺個源頭嗰度去再即係處理咧，你喺個工廠碳排放量降低嘅話咧，已經係一個幫助，從而咧佢哋可以產生嘅 carbon
So
credit，
then
翻工廠
carbon
翻
credits
廠
can be
佬
generated
就係嗰
and
啲
the
十塊，
factory operators
同埋係
will
數以
be
百
able to
萬計嘅
supply.
工廠咁你。
And we're talking about
數以千
millions
萬
of
計添，
factories or tens of
但係呢
millions
樣
of
嘢要
factories.
好多時間去慢推啊。
But it takes time to promote
第二位嘅
all
朋友。
this. Next.
Felix，我想請問咧，香港個 carbon
Felix,
market
my
咧，
question
而
is
家
about Hong Kong carbon
佢 trade 緊，你頭先
Right
講個
now,
registry 嘅問題啦，
you
即係
talked
嗰個
about the
註冊
registry
嘅問
issue.
題。而家係 trade 緊邊幾個registry， 同埋未來個
Which
roadmap 會有幾
registries
多個
are being
registry 加落
traded
去？
now?
佢而家基本上咧就
Going to
Eura
be
Gold Standard 為主嘅，
registries to be
係兩個嘅啫，而
But
家暫時。
basically, only there are
咁但
gold
係佢
standard.
佢
These
啲
are the
貨
two
源咧就
main ones.
base on
But then the
都
supply
係個 standard 喺邊度嚟嘅，咁就
depends
擺
on
啦。
where
有
the
啲印
standard
度，有
is.
啲
There are
喺
some from
南美
India,
洲，
some
有啲
from
中國
South
咁，佢都
America,
係
some
呢
from
兩種
China.
呢兩種嘅
So
啫。
these are the
咁
new
新嘅
registries.
registry 咧，你真係要問 Core
Well,
Climate
we
同埋
have
港交所佢
to
哋
ask
即係點樣
the
睇？
Hong Kong Stock
冇
Exchange.
佢冇 roaming，
They do not
完
have
全冇。
any
即係最近
registry.
我正話所提及，最近咧9月份成立咗一個新嘅喺新加坡同香港一齊成立嘅一個叫 Asia Carbon Institute， 佢哋都冇 comment。但係政府有派官員去做 opening， 派咗阿陳浩濂嘅副局去做 opening， 即係政府係知有呢樣嘢，但係冇我嘅 understanding 冇
My
connect 到入去。
understanding is that no further comments have been made. Next,
我想請教下
Felix, my question is, first of all, just now, you said that
如果你話喺國內嘅話，
in mainland China, well, industries are so well developed.
高嘅行業，譬如高排放、
There are the highly polluting, highly emitting industries.
一啲 revamp project 已經係可以係
And they already have some revamp projects which have decarbonized a lot. So they should have carbon credits.
喺國內嘅公司
They can create value already. For mainland companies,
如果係國內係一個80蚊
for example, in the mainland, the carbon credit is worth $80, and then in Western countries is €100.
其實我已經睇到一個好大嘅 difference。咁其實點
I can already see a very big difference here.
即係窒礙咗而家國內嘅公司
So what
可以將佢
has made it so difficult for mainland companies to revamp their projects so that the value from decarbonization can be released and sold in the international market?
真係十分之好嘅，因為
This
我
is
都啱
really a
點
good
解
question.
我同好
I
多
have to scratch my head. Yes, there are so many factories, so many manufacturers there. I have talked to a few hundred manufacturers. I explained all these to them. The big bosses all said yes.
佢哋係冇人
But
跟，
no one
冇人跟。
is there to follow things up.
同埋佢
In
哋
the
冇
implementation
即係冇嗰個
stage,
迫切性，冇
they
個
do not
urgency，
feel the urgency.
係完全 feel 唔到
They
有
don't
有
feel
點解
any
去做呢樣嘢
urgency
唉
at
大佬
all.
我下個月張單都未搞掂，
Well,
搞到
they
下個月張
have
單先
to
啦，
first deal
係
with
咪？
the order
或者
for
呢
next
段時
month.
間，喂，
Or
過
during
年
this
就係
period
要
is
撲水
almost
去，真係
New
撲
Year
水先啦，
to
係咪？
ensure
即係
that
呢
they
啲
have
咁嘅嘢，唉呀，大佬我都
available.
冇
They have
唔
to
知係咪得
recover
嘅，
payments
係
and so
咪？
on.
因
So
為
they
佢冇法
don't
例
know
監
whether
管，唔
all
係話
these
真係
really
有法例
work.
話你要即刻做噶嘛。
There is
即係
no
你唔
law
係
saying
例
that
如好
they
似
have
香
to
港上市
act
公司
right
咁嘅，
now.
咁港交所有法例要做 ESG report 咪焗住要做咯。如果冇呢條法例，你問下佢哋做唔做？佢哋都
So
同我一
Hong
樣，
Kong companies
係
have
咪
to do？
即係
it. If there is no
但
such
係佢
law,
係
many
feel
companies
即係
may not
feel 唔到
do
嗰
it
嚿
right
錢
away.
出嚟，因為另外一個問題咧，
Another
唔
question
係
is,
間間
or
廠
another problem
真
is
係 certify 到一定
Not
係
all
大嘅 carbon
factories
credit 出嚟。
can
我最
do
近有
certification.
一
Only
間
big
做
factories or big companies
30
can.
億
There
turnover
is
嘅
a
上市
company,
公
a
司
listed
製衣廠
company
嚟
with
嘅，
3 billion
一年佢
turnover.
certify
It is
2萬
a
噸。
garment factory.
但係佢
And
話
every
2
year
萬噸 喎
they
幾
have
錢
got
咯
20,000 tons
嚇
certified.
係
And
咪
they are
咪
saying,
最多
well,
賣
at
賣
most
幾
I
百
can get
萬，
back
即
like
係
2
可
to
能係佢
3
哋
million
3
by
億幾百
selling
萬
20,000
係
tons.
big deal，唔
So
係一個大事。
2 to 3 million is
但
not
係
a
咧
big
又要
deal
做
to
好多
them,
嘢，又
but
叫
they
好
have
似
to
伙
do a
計，
lot
又
of
嗰個
work.
又
They
整
have
死
to
編，
ask many of their
誒遲先
employees
啦，
to
入需要
do
先，
a
入
lot
需
of
要先，
work.
啲客要求
So they
先。
will say, okay, let's
我
leave it
見
to
到
a
好
later
多見到
time.
好多咁嘅嘢。
There
有
are
啲甚
many
至乎
such
certify
cases.
咗得幾百噸，就翻嚟孖叉嗰啲。
After
咁咪搞
certification, in
搞
some
啱
cases
都
they
得
get
幾百
only
噸，
a
喂，
few
個
hundred
point 係
tons.
你
So
自己
they
做得唔
came back
掂
to
啊嘛，
scold me. So
係
I
咪？即
said,
係你又唔
it
做
is
環保，你又唔
your
做，你又
company
唔
which is
投
not
資，
doing
又
a
唔
good
做
job.
設備，咁
You
你即
have
係
not
燒緊柴
invested
油。
in equipment
咁我
and you are
何
still
有
burning
泵你啊？
diesel.
係咪啊？
So how
我
can
話
you
你
get
即
more
刻你轉
tons?
做
If you can
natural gas 天然氣
change to
guarantee 你即
natural
刻下
gas,
年
I
有
can
有多好
guarantee
多。
you that
咁
you
佢
can
話到
get
時
a
先
lot
算。
right away.
即係有
And
好
then
多
they
咁
said,
嘅
okay, just
嘅
forget it.
嘅理由
So
俾
there are
自己。
many, they are giving themselves a lot of excuses. Now, the biggest issue is the mainland carbon credit exchange is not connected with the international platform. So, yes, the price is low in China. Please don't think that the credits can be sold in Europe or EU to make huge money.
喂喂係我想問咧
My question
你頭先
is,
講過話
just now
即係做要認證一個 carbon credit
you
要
said
搞
that
可能
carbon
幾年
credits will have to be
然後可能要
certified,
好
and
多
this may
錢，可
take
能都
a
係
few
幾
years
百萬
and a
咁
lot
樣
of money, like a
咁
few
係咪即係有
million.
啲大嘅
Now,
project 先做得到，
is
細
it
嘅
true that
project 就好
only
難做？
big
同埋
projects can
有
do
冇
it,
啲
but
方
not
法
small
或者用啲
projects?
科技或者用到
Is
啲
there
咩
any
方法，或者
technology
令
and
到啲
method
auditor 可以快啲
so
用
that
啲
auditors
收費平啲，然
can
後
do
又
it
可以
faster,
多啲
easier,
供應
and
量
they
咧
can
個
charge
carbon
more
credit 可以多啲
fees
供應量，
so
或
that
者多啲
there
人
would be
參
bigger
加咧。
supply of carbon credits and more people can take part? Do we have
多啲
PwC
供應
people
量多啲
here?
人參加，咁啊令到個市
Yes,
場
if more people take part in carbon credits, then
唔係
I
即係
think
呢
the
樣嘢
whole
咧，因
strings
為
would
始終
be
咧，即係
bigger.
我所講，
Right.
即係做
As I
咗
said,
幾條問題咧，即係你
just
知道
now
大家
we
在座有
did an
興趣嘅，
opinion poll.
整體嚟講都唔係太了解。
Most of
OK， 即
you
係要聽
here,
多
or
啲，
most
即
people,
係要
do
即
not
係
have
例如好似同我哋呢啲咁樣
very
分享多
in-depth
啲。
understanding of the whole
個
exercise.
point 係
The point is,
你要做到成行成市，
if you
係
want
要做到
enough
好發達嘅咧，
scale
要啲時間咯。
or
但係
effect,
都係講
it
嗰
takes
句，
time.
有啲地方你要同佢做生意，
In some
佢政
places,
策
if
一
you
步
want to do business
唔到
with
你唔做。
them, well, once the
OK，
policies are
即係你
there,
等於
you
歐
are
3
obliged
年
to
後
do
嗰個
it.
碳稅
3
出
years
現，
later,
你冇
in
同歐盟
EU,
生意
they
咯，
will have carbon
係咪？
tax. Unless if you
即
don't do
係
business with
有好多
EU.
嘢咧，somehow 係要逼出嚟。
So there are a lot of things
因為
that
你
will
香港
only
即係
be
翻轉頭，香港
materialized
係
when
冇
you
法
are
例。
forced to do it.
我嘅
In Hong
understanding
Kong,
唔準備立任何法例。
the
咁你
government is
香港
not
企業
going
咧
to
係
make
冇
any
個
law,
urgency
so
同
Hong
埋個
Kong
迫切性，同埋
enterprises
冇嗰個
won't
關
feel
節
the
性。
urgency
OK， 除非你係同外
unless
國國際
if
係要做生意，
you need to do
國際企業
business
做生意，
with
人哋
international
要求你，
enterprises
如果唔係
and
你就
they
同佢做唔
have
到
the
生意，
requirement.
你就
Otherwise, you
話
can't
呢
do
樣做。
business with them.
即
Then
係
you
呢個
will
就係唯
rush
一
to do it.
嘅令到
That is
啲
the
人
only
aware 到呢個問題。
way
你
to
知唔
make
知
people
audit
aware.
做 audit 呢啲
For
咧
audit
有
work,
平有貴喎。你
well,
揾
audit
4
can be
你
expensive
睇
or
6位數字
inexpensive.
有7位數字有，我識
Sometimes
一啲
6-digit
3皮嘢都可以
fee
同你做。
or 7-digit fee. I know some auditors who can do the work at 30,000. So it depends on the qualities that you are demanding or the standing of the company. As long as they can certify, well, some only charge 30,000. I can refer them to you. And here at the PwC, it will take like 600,000.
好，仲有冇
Okay, any other
想問
questions,
問題嘅
please?
朋友？
Any other questions?
Felix 想請教下，頭
Felix,
先你提到個 case
just now
咧，
you
即
talked
係
about
如
a
果佢
case.
係可以好低成本，
If the
又可
cost
以
can be
產
low
生效益而產生更高
and
嘅碳方面嘅收入咧，咁
such
即
high
係
income can be
make sense 點解唔會
generated
有好
from
多呢
carbon
啲
credit.
而家我哋有
Then,
能源管理
well,
都
we
係
have
我幫
a
你
lot of
去做
energy
管理
management work,
分享以後減咗個
and then by doing better energy management,
理論上應該
then efficiency can be improved. In the GBA, there are so many factories. I'm sure many Hong Kong people should rush to do this business, and the manufacturers will be willing to do it because you pay the money first, and then we can decarbonize. If I can sell the carbon credits, we can share the benefit or profit. So the economics seem to be favorable, and the problem should be resolved in that case. Okay, when it comes to carbon credit or ESG, these became popular only 3 years ago. For carbon credit, only 1 to 2 years ago. Carbon credit did not only appear now. In 2007, 2008, they already arose. But at that time, there are some super large international companies which dominated the scene. And so people are of the view that these are not things that should involve normal average companies. WWF has a program known as LCM. It existed starting 2007. There are companies involved, but those are mainly big listed companies in the manufacturing sector. After carbon credits are generated, they do not sell them. They do internal offset. So there is not much active trade. When other SMEs saw that, well, they are of the view that these were only dominated by big companies. We're not capable of doing it. It doesn't involve us. Our customers have not requested for it. So why do I need to do it? Right now, the factory's mentality is like this. And later on, they are engaged in price war. Okay, Dongguan is not cheap enough. Then let me move to Bangladesh or Cambodia. Again, people just compete on price. Okay, I can make profit. I don't need to do anything extra. But now the situation is changing because the overseas buyers, the MNCs, ask the factories to do it. Otherwise, they won't get the business. So they are forced to do it. That is the main reason, not because of the potential money that can be made. If I don't tell you, you won't know that the price difference is that big between China and EU in terms of carbon credit price. So now people's mentality is changing. I am telling people that if you don't do it now, a few years later, if you approach me, you will have to queue up. Right, we can stay behind for a little while. We have prepared some refreshment as well. Let's put our hands together for Felix. Thank you very much. Thank you, Felix, for making this presentation on this interesting topic. So let's take a group photo together, okay? You may just stay in your seat, and we can take a picture of all of you. Felix is saving the world. Okay, please stay in your seats. Please stay in your seats. Ready? Let's show a thumb up. 1, 2, 3. Once again. Okay, cheers. One like again. Thank you. Okay, now our photographer will also take a picture of all of us. All right, ready? Please look at the camera. Ready? 1, 2, 3. One more. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, show your thumb, please. Okay, thank you. Please help us with one more thing. We organize these events. Of course, we want your participation. Apart from attending our events, I hope that you can plan together with us, and we hope to get your donation as well. Here is our WhatsApp number. Please take note of this number or scan the QR code.
呢個係我哋公司電話嚟嘅。
This is the number of our company.
如果有咩問題啊，
So if you have any questions or if you want to participate more, please WhatsApp us anytime.
大家 scan 咗未
Okay, have you scanned the QR code?
咁啊，另外仲有
Right.
嘅。
One more thing.
咁我哋今晚咧都有一個
Tonight,
問卷想
we are
徵求
going
大
to
家
do a
對於今晚
questionnaire
呢
survey.
個活動嘅意見
Please
啦。
give
咁
us
大
your
家幫我
feedback
電話出
about
嚟
this
幫
event.
我做咗個問卷
Now,
調查佢好唔
please
好啊？
complete the questionnaire survey for me with your mobile
大
phone.
家 scan 個 QR
Just
code 就得
scan the
㗎啦
QR code.
慢慢啊，
Take your time.
你哋嘅意見對我哋嚟講係好寶貴
Your feedback is very valuable to us. In the future, we can improve our events.
我哋點樣去做得更加好咁樣啦？
We hope to improve our work.
好，俾多半分鐘
Okay.
大家。
I'll give you half a minute more.
慢慢填啊。
Okay, take your time.
大家慢慢填啊。 大家填完未啊？
Have you finished? Have you finished? Who haven't finished?
有填緊嘅，等多一陣好冇？
Some of you are still completing the survey. Okay, let me give you a little bit more time.
大家都填晒咯
All done?
嗬，多謝大家。
Okay, thank you very much.
寶貴嘅意見
Thank you for giving us your valuable comments. So
多謝 Felix 為我哋
we are concluded here. Thank you once again, Felix, for the sharing.
咁之後咧，係
I have a request. The presentation is really excellent. Can you send us a soft copy of the slides? Well, we will upload it to our website. Perhaps we can also WhatsApp or email to you. Please pay attention to our email and WhatsApp. Okay. Tonight, thank you PwC for sponsoring the venue and also the coffee and tea. Thank you PwC. This week, they have sponsored us for 2 events already. We have arranged pizza for you. So please stay for more conversation. We don't need to end so soon. We can stay behind for further sharing and conversation. Please feel free to network. Okay, we will conclude here. Thank you. Please stay for the pizza, okay?